Guys, let me just say this. This was an incredible game. There were people that have, given it kind of harsh reviews here and there. And I understand because there was probably a portion in the game where I was like, I felt like there was like a lull in the story. I could see myself, literally putting the game down and not finishing it out. And it was actually right before Sid died. And then once Sid died, it was like everything changed. The tone, everything just shifted in a crazy way. And man, I was completely on board. I'm really curious to know what the budget was for this game because I have never played a game with this many just AAA quality cutscene after cutscene after cutscene. Some people are complaining about it. They're like, dude, there's too many cutscenes. Well, obviously, like, you don't have to game 12 hours at a time. You know what I mean? And this is one of those games that you want to digest piece by piece. You want to take time. You want to get into the lore and understand what's happening in the world. I love that this game was so realistic in a lot of ways, outside of it being about magic and crystals and aliens and whatever else. But I love that on top of what's happening in the world, these political struggles and the war that's taking place between these different nations and why it was taking place. I mean, everything just made sense. I love characters like Prince Dion, who is such an honorable character and such a loving son. And he literally does everything he can to try to protect his country and also be like the best son to his father. And even though I hated her, I love how much they made a character that we wanted to see die in like the worst death possible. And that was Clive and Joshua's mother. Like, man, I don't think I've disliked a character like that in like a really long time. I wanted her to die so bad. And unfortunately, she had like a Cersei level of death where she took her own life. But like, it would have been nice to have, I don't think Joshua or Clive would have done it. So for their character's sake, it's probably good that she did that. But at least from my experience, this is the best Final Fantasy game I've ever played. I know I've got probably some Final Fantasy veteran players in here that are like heresy, but this is the best Final Fantasy game I've ever played. What would I rate this game? When it comes to rating a game, man, it all comes down to like your own taste. Some people like open world sandbox games and some people like looters. When I look at this game, to me, I think it's comparable to God of War. This game is on that level of God of War for me. Different styles, but in a lot of ways, very similar. And so for a single player game, dude, I have to give it a 9.5 out of 10. And the only reason why I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10 is because I do wish there was like another element fleshed out for your gear. Even though that's not the kind of game it is, it would have been nice to have really gone out of our way to like acquire great gear. I know there's like the sword and the sword quest that you do with the blacksmith, and I was doing that too, and we got some cool swords and stuff, but there was never like a moment where I was like, I need to get these things, you know what I mean? Granted, in New Game Plus, you probably do need to get those things. This game is what it is. It's Final Fantasy 14, but single player. It's a single player version of Final Fantasy 14. And I love Final Fantasy 14. Is there any relation at all in the universe between these two games, or is it completely separate? There's so many similarities between both of those games. The enemy types that are in those games, even from the zoning, like the maps and the zoning are very similar. I loved it though. And as I'm playing it, man, it's like, it's been a number of years since I've played Final Fantasy 14, but like hearing the music, man, just like pulled me back and made me want to just load up Final Fantasy 14. Look, everybody plays Final Fantasy 14 for different reasons. I think it has some of the best social aspects in all of MMORPGs. I think it has the best crafting system. I used to spend hours just in there just crafting in that game, and it's got such an addicting crafting system. I know nobody really talks about, Final Fantasy's crazy crafting system, but it's just extremely engaging. But man, if there's something that's memorable between that game and I guess this game as well, is the music, man. That music is phenomenal. Now, where this game sets itself apart is the combat. The combos and the different abilities, dude, that's wild. Like, they are in some case way overpowered, but that's why there's a New Game Plus and a Final Fantasy mode. It's like you have to become that strong, probably combat things there, right? And like when going up against that, like that level 50 S rank, like holy hell, it was sweaty, it was difficult, but it wasn't like Valkyrie level of difficulty in like say God of War. But again, New Game Plus will probably change that. If you're like, yo, I'm a Soul player and I want a Dark Souls experience or an Elden Ring experience, that's not what this game is trying to be. And I feel like that's kind of a comparison that's trying to be made there. That's not what this game is. Although it does possess difficulty, it isn't like one of those where you're like, I'm going to smash my dick into this blender for the next 6 hours trying to kill this boss. This game is very much story driven first, and it tells that story so well. I did not see a single voice actor or actress slacking at all in this entire game. You know, when you play things like Skyrim and you're going from like town to town and you hear the same VA like 20 different times, but then you play this game and it's a different VA every single time. And dude, they are balling out. They are literally going all out. Even the side quests, the side missions, they are selling that shit. So somebody dropped like some crazy numbers in here on what the budget was for this game. Dude, I can imagine. And you know what? I hope it makes a shit ton of money because this game deserves it. Really, this team deserves it. You don't see blockbuster experiences like this in gaming. You know, I love Tears of the Kingdom. I love Zelda. I think it's still one of the best games I've ever played in my life. But I was let down, like there wasn't more like voice acting in Zelda. I felt like, all right, you know, as big of a game as that game is, which I know it's just on Nintendo, but you know it was making bang. It would have been nice to have everything voice acted. And then coming over here, everything is voice acted with like some of the best voice acting ever. Was great. The story, there's been some comments online, I think Twitter and stuff, where it was like the story wasn't cohesive enough or like it lost me. There's a comment that I read the other day on Twitter that was that the story about half or 2/3 the way through just lost people, or this one person that wrote it just lost them, and they didn't understand why Clive changed, why he went from survival mode, vengeance, to I'm gonna save the world. And I was expecting that the entire time, almost to the point where like even like halfway through the game and like to the 2/3 point, I was like, all right, where's the moment where the narrative is gonna lose me? I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for the narrative to just fuck me and make me go, okay, I gotta think about this hard and accept the change here in the narrative. That never happened. I never had that happen. I don't know if anyone else in here had that happen for him. To me, it made sense because yes, Clive did change, but he changed because Sid died, and it affected him so much that he took on Sid's name. And then not only that, it wasn't just the name that he took on, it was the responsibilities. So of course, he went from this vengeance mindset to suddenly he's got to protect people. To me, it didn't lose me. I was still like playing as I was, even after that point, it's like, okay, where's this gonna lose me? It took Sid dying though to spark that change in Clive. It would have been nice to have more Sid. I very much enjoyed Sid. He was a beast. There were some questions that I had, like he knew a lot. He knew who Ultima was and stuff like that. It was a shame like he didn't like educate any of them on that fact before he left. And considering he served King Barnabas as Lord Commander, he saw some shit for sure, hence why he left, right? But overall, the story didn't lose me. The budget is definitely in the storytelling and the characters and the voice acting and the cinematics and the combat. That's where everything is, and I thought that it nailed every single one of those points fantastically. I wish more games had this quality of storytelling. And as someone who plays other games that have to, like, you know, for instance, like I don't want to throw Destiny under the bus, but you know, we're happy when we just get like a single cutscene from Destiny. Dude, we get a single cutscene from Destiny, we're like, dude, we got a cutscene. Oh my God, we got a cutscene. We know what's going on, baby. We know what's happening. And then there's this game that's like, yo, here's 20 hours of cutscenes. Have fucking fun. Oh yeah. The active time lore was so good. To be able to stop and like immediately like, okay, what's going on right now? Hold a button on your PlayStation. It immediately pulls up all the characters on the screen and you can read about them right there on the spot. That is amazing. That is a feature a lot of other games should include. And I know there's like the debate there is like, no, that ruins the immersion. You have to seek out the answers. Dude, sometimes, man, context, you just need context. And it's really, really nice to pull things up. The moment that the game changed for me too on that front was whenever I was actually watching the battle take place between Bahamut and Odin. And that was an amazing battle. And then you pull up the lore and you freaking go through the lore too, that like gives you background on these characters that are like fighting it out and why this is such a massive battle that's taking place. That was amazing. And let me just say, this may actually go down as the most beautiful game I've ever played. All the characters just looked amazing. Fucking amazing. Actually, I don't even know how you make characters that sexy looking. Everybody in this damn, even Uncle Phil was sexy. I mean, he is right. I mean, it is linear. I mean, it's very much drives you into, hey, play the story, progress into these missions. And like the only thing that's like exciting that you can do outside of that is maybe side quests, which are kind of not necessary. I mean, you can get a chocobo. I didn't like that I couldn't bring the chocobos in the town. Small thing, but still, but nice to bring chocobos in town. Tell you what though, I know Final Fantasy 14 is still kicking and still got a ton of subscribers and they're still making content and it's still a great game. But man, dude, if they could ever make an MRPG with like essentially these graphics, oh my God. I don't know if you can, but it'd be amazing. I mean, Final Fantasy 14 is still a very beautiful game too. But the graphics on this were fantastic. Everything was so sexy. All right, guys. Would I recommend this game? Listen, let me just say this. If you're a PlayStation owner already, absolutely. It's a great game. If you're a Final Fantasy fan, I think you're going to love this one. If you're not a Final Fantasy fan, I think you're going to love this one. Should you go out tomorrow and buy a PlayStation 5 just to play this game? Dude, that's completely in your wheelhouse. You need to figure out if that's really something you want to do. That is a much bigger financial commitment. You know, I think that this is still a great game. And I think if you enjoy what you've seen, maybe from the cinematics and maybe watching some other people's streams, then perhaps. But this game is supposed to come out on PC 6 months, a year. It's a good enough game that I'm going to replay it on PC. And I normally don't ever replay games. Hell, I normally don't finish games, but this is a good enough game that we'll be replaying for sure. It's gonna look too damn good, guys. I mean, you see how sexy it looks here on PlayStation 5. I gotta see how sexy it looks on PC, man.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.